Hi folks, Slick Slices here. Now this is Stockman Saturday. Now I was going to do this last week, I said I would, and then I just never had time, so it didn't get done. So I thought I'd give it a go today, and this is the second attempt. Obviously it's the second and final attempt because you wouldn't be seeing it otherwise. But when I was trying to open 3 blades of this little one on camera, I sliced my hand open. So I had to start again. So I've got them open. I'm not going to open them on camera. But all I need to say really is they've got very good actions. Unfortunately, the little one has got very strong springs and short blades and small handles to hold. So it was relatively easy to slip and cut myself. It's not deep, but it's annoying. Anyway, the Stockman. Now, the Stockman originally was a Sheffield pattern. Rogers and Winston were both very prolific in producing knives to send to America. But really that came out of the end of the Civil War, because before then the market for Bowie knives was particularly huge, and in a time of peace they needed to come up with something else. Now both Rogers and Winston had offices in America, so they were able to sort of look around and see what people wanted, what they thought they might need, and the pattern that they kind of seemed to settle on eventually, I don't know who invented it and who copied it. Must be one or the other, I suspect. But maybe that it was a knife that they found locally and decided they could manufacture. I don't know the history of that. But what is now perhaps the classic Stockman has become the case Stockman, because it was they've been making it for a long time, and the Sheffield makers, certainly in their representation in America, has been very much diminished since the imposition of tariffs in 1890. So this one here is sort of what I would consider the current classic Stockman. This is a quite recent case knife. I think that's 2019 is the date on it there. It's in their chrome vanadium steel, or their carbon steel, which can get very sharp. Wasn't this one that cut me though? It can get very sharp, and it's relatively easy to sharp. The pattern of blades was pretty much set up quite early on, but there are some variations that have come through. But the traditional pattern has a long clip blade, a relatively short sheep's foot blade, and a short spay blade. So when addressing the cattleman or the stockman, knife is just a good general blade. The sheep's foot blade is good for not just sheep's feet, but dealing with cattle's feet as well, their hooves. If they get stones or nails or anything in them, you have to trim them back, and you've got a good knife for doing that here. And then the spay blade, well, obviously you can have too many male bulls in your herd, so male cows are generally either slaughtered at birth if they're in a dairy herd, or if it's a meat herd, then they castrate them, and a spay blade, castrator blade, is what that's for. Now this is the blade that can vary. I don't have any with a punch, which is one of the common blades, or an awl, which I think is a good choice actually, because it gives you, the awl is both a boring tool for making holes, but it also gives you a really strong, stout little blade at the same time. So, but what I do have as a variation is this one, and this is the Stockman again it's case. This one was in the Delrin and CV. Which is a very sort of common. Almost all case knives come in Delrin and CV, but or can come in it. The bone cover ones tend, though they're not exclusively, but tend to be their sharp, true sharp stainless steel. And this one is certainly sharp. That little spade blade, sheep's foot blade there, is what did that just now. But this one, instead of having a spade blade, has a pen blade. It's a pretty subtle difference, and they do both. Sorry, what I was just saying about the handles here. These are in peach seed, amber peach seed bone, jigged bone, amber peach seed jigged bone, which just about every knife case, every pattern that case does, they do one in this. And of the medium Stockman here, 3.5 inch as opposed to 4 1/8 inch, is available with either a spear point blade, or sorry, pen blade, or a spade blade. It's probably available with a punch, but I just haven't seen one. Now, the idea with this Stockman Saturday is you show one every week. Well, I only have 2 companies, Stockmans. I've got these ones, which are the case ones, and then I have 2. Well, as you probably all know by now, I collect Taylor's Eyewitness knives, and I have 2 of their really quite spectacular Stockmans. And these are 2 of the more most expensive knives they do. I suspect currently this one is probably the most expensive knife that they make, though this particular one is a very early example of Lee White's work, and it wasn't his best. This is a very recent example of Lee White's work, and it is really, really good. No, this is terrible. I mean, but it's just not the best work he's ever done. But I love it because it's got the mother of pearl, and I love mother of pearl. And I also find it quite attractive because I was offered it at a very substantial discount, partly because it's been hanging around for a long time, and partly because it's not perfect. But anyway, let's have a quick look at these. I'll do the less perfect one first. I mean, this is a stunning looking knife. I don't know how they do it, but tailors seem to get the best of materials, the best mother of pearl, the best ironwood, and the best of just about everything else. I don't know how they manage it, but they do. So this one is in a pretty stunning mother of pearl. Now, I will open this one on camera. I'll probably live to regret this, but I'm going to do it. The reason being that the action on this one is it's relatively easy. Sorry, I just had to say that off. I don't want to stick holes in my leather desktop. So again, we have a clip point main blade, and then if we turn it over, we have a sheep's foot blade, and the traditional spade blade, all in a really beautiful mirror polish, as perhaps one comes to expect from a tailor's premium knife. They're also very covered in fingerprints. I need to give these a wee wipe. Back in a moment. Well, that's a bit better. I've got rid of some of the fingerprints. It's difficult to get rid of all of them. Now, why do I say this knife isn't quite the best thing that Lee ever made? Mainly because the action on the back blades is very soft. The pin here for the pivot for the two blades is very visible. This side is better, but mostly the file work, nice though it is, it just doesn't match. Now I don't know if there's a sort of deliberate offset in that pattern, because you'll see that the shorter thorns, as it were, is a vine pattern, but the shorter ones sort of seem to line up and go across to the other. Now I don't know if that was the intention, in which case, if it was, I perhaps owe Lee an apology, and that could be the case, but it's not the way that they normally do it, so I'm assuming that it's just a little bit offset in error, but hey, who knows? I may be wrong. If I am, I apologise most sincerely. I'm sure Lee will tell me. Anyway, lovely knife. Now I'll show you the other one, and then I'll just show you why I think these are particularly splendid knives, not just because they're beautifully made and the materials that they're made of, but this one, I should really say, this one is desert ironwood, and funnily enough, again, it's not the best sort of burl desert ironwood I've ever seen. Certainly not the best I've seen out of Taylor's, but it's very nice. It makes a very imposing little, well, actually not so little, we'll come to that in a minute, pocket knife. The file pattern on this is as traditionally as you would expect. One side is a mirror to the other. Interestingly, the new 5-piece 3 spring knife that they're just bringing out, the one I did a little preview of the other day, is the springs are kind of stacked, so they're all the same around. There's no mirroring. Now, the action on this knife is very much more what you would expect of a Sheffield knife. So I'll just let you see and hear what the action is like here as it goes into the open. A really good solid thunk to it, and the same applies to the smaller blades. Now, I'm not going to get the smaller blades out on this one just now, because all I'll do is cut myself, and they're exactly the same as the ones on there, except that the actions are more like we've just seen there. Again, with the beautiful file work, and it goes into the blades, and all of the standard luxuries that a Premier knife has. Now, but the point I really wanted to make about these is in terms of their size. Now, these two blades are incontrovertibly well under the sort of maximum size for UK legal knives, so we don't really have to worry about those. And the same can be said of the case two smaller blades, but where we do have a problem is in terms of the main blade. Now, cutting edge under 3 inches, 2 7/8, absolutely fine, and the legislation says a sharpened cutting edge of less than 3 inches, but the full length of the blade is just over 3 1/4. Now, as I said about the black belt barrister the other day, he says you should measure the whole blade because there is a certain amount of practice in the courts, which has meant that judges have worked on that basis, and you don't really want to go to jail for an argument over a quarter of an inch on a knife blade. You'd be better off just getting something that's not so controversial. And this is where Taylor's eyewitness come in. Is if we look at the case knife, look at dimensions overall, we've a 4 1/4 inch frame and an overall length of 7 3/4 inches or thereby. The Taylor's knife is again a chunky boy, but he's coming in at just a little bit shorter. He's coming in at 7 inches pretty much dead, which, you know, compare him to the case knife, it's just a tad smaller, but nowhere near as small as the, you know, the medium knife. This one, you know, it's just not even, it's more like the case one. But when we come to measure the blade, and obviously it's the main blade that matters in all of this, the main blade, or sorry, the cutting edge of the blade is 2 3/4 inches, so that's well under the 3-inch level, just as the case is, but the overall blade length comes in almost exactly on 3 inches. It's just shy of it. So this you can carry every day of the week without any fear of breaking any UK legal laws. The case, well, you're probably all right, but if you're not, I'm afraid a judge may wish to take your knife off you, and he could, if he decided to, send you to prison. I mean, there's quite a drive at the moment to make a compulsory jail sentence for anybody caught with a knife in the UK. Now I hope that that doesn't go anywhere, because I think even with the knife criminals, you know, the young lads in gangs and so forth, sending them to prison isn't necessarily going to cure them of being gang members and hoodlums. It will simply give them an opportunity to learn how to be more diabolical gangsters and hoodlums. Maybe I'm a bit soft on these things, but I'm afraid I just think that we really need to look at rehabilitation, not so much the degree of punishment. Anyway, let's get off that. That's not a very exciting thing to be talking about. It's much more exciting to be talking about these lovely knives. The case knife, beautiful working knife, really strong and tough, and, you know, a workman's knife. These share the characteristics of that as a working knife, but they also look beautiful at the same time. They're also, I think, one of these today, if you paid for it at full price, is probably around the £400 mark. This one is a little bit less, about 350, I think, but you can pick up one of these case knives for well under £100 in America, probably half that in dollars. And the amber peach seed jigged bone, one smaller one, I think, is about the same price as the large one, but it has obviously the bone, and these two are both the same year, so both 2019, I think. Now I don't know when these two were made. I think this one was made probably about 2020, 2021, and this one was probably made a few years before that. I've certainly had it since 2021, perhaps a little bit longer, but it was one of those. Back in the day, knives used to sit on the Bakewell Cookshop website for a long time before anybody bought them. They were sort of expensive, and sometimes you know, people weren't going to a cook shop to buy expensive pocket knives necessarily. Obviously, of late that's become a bit different, and now they tend to fly off the shelf as fast as they arrive, which is a good thing. I'm glad to see it, because it's helped. Tailors have really picked themselves up in the last few years, and they've started to employ, I mean, Case would laugh at this, but they had, until recently, there was just Lee. He was the only person making pocket knives at Tailor's Eyewitness, and that meant the cheap budget ones right the way through to these. There are now 2 trainees, so hopefully there'll be 3 of them very soon, all producing knives of the same quality as Lee. I think the other 2, I haven't seen any of Denise's work yet. Andrew is very much getting there. I still prefer Lee's knives, but they will get there. Right. Oh, just one other thing I should say about the Stockman pattern. Blade rub is almost inevitable. There is something about, I'll show you with this one, the way that the spay blade and the third blade are nested inside each other. It almost looks to me as though they share a spring, obviously, but it always looks to me as though the sheaves for blade has been bent. I don't think, I mean, it's always the same. It doesn't really matter what whether it's a Tailor's one or whether it's one of the Case ones, but it's inevitable, almost inevitable, that you will see some blade rub on the tip of this is pressing on there, I think, and on the main blade there's quite a bit of blade rub there. See, so got a bit of blade rub there. Part of that is because of the way that I open them, because I do tend to put quite a lot of pressure on the blade sideways to get them to open, and this, particularly this one, has very snappy springs, hence it cut me. But yeah, there's good action on this one. And as I say, this has a great action on it. Cam tangs on all of these, by the way. But listen to that. The case, big case. See if I can shut it without causing myself any more injury. Okay, not brilliant, but okay. The main blade. Bit soft. Certainly compared to that little one. The little one has a real gator snap to it. And just the folding on this one. Yeah, a little bit soft. But the disappointment, if there is such a thing, with this knife, the mother of pearl one, which is beautiful, but the blades are, like, particularly that sheep's foot, is really quite soft opening. The main blade isn't so bad. Its opening action is pretty good. It's better than the case, but not as good as the other tailors. Anyway, if you like this stuff, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more of my knives, there won't be any more Stockmans because these are all I've got. Then please subscribe and remember to ring the bell to be notified of when they're coming up. I don't have any more Stockmans, but I've got plenty of beautiful knives, particularly like these two. And case ones are far from ugly. Anyway, thank you very much. Bye.